Okay, hello, and welcome to Tech and Learning Conversations. I'm Kevin Hogan, and I'm happy you found us. Today, we're talking about something every school district struggles with. How do you actually reach parents in the year 2026? My guest, Tom Livezey, he's the superintendent of Oakridge schools in Southwest Michigan, has been leading his 1,800 student district for almost 17 years. And his approach to communication has evolved organically, from printed newsletters to a multi-platform strategy that spans everything from traditional websites to TikTok. Lots of interesting things in this conversation. One especially, though, his biggest breakthrough came through when he actually stopped sending his printed quarterly newsletter. Once he realized that no one even noticed, they shaved off $20,000 off communication strategy by not doing that anymore, but investing in new and more innovative ways in which to reach. So in this conversation today, Tom shares how he unified his staff around using accessible communication tools, why he personally responds to parent messages through a district app, and what surprised him the most about this evolution from paper to digital. So let's get into it. Okay, Tom, thanks so much for joining me today. I really appreciate it, and Happy New Year. I think I can still say that.
Absolutely. Thank you, Kevin. I'm looking forward to sharing our story about communication and all the things we're doing here at Oakridge to partner with our community.
Yeah, let's dive right into it. Tell us a little bit about your community, how long you've been there, what's the vibe, and maybe start off by telling us what was the inspiration for this change that we're going to talk about.
Yeah. So Oakridge, we're about 1,800 students in Southwest Michigan. We're about 15 minutes from Lake Michigan. That's a low socioeconomic school district. So we got our challenges here, but. With the communication that we're here to talk about, honestly, perhaps a podcast is not the best time to be humble about the things that we're doing, but there was no grand plan. It's just piece by piece of how are we going to get parents the information that they need so that they can partner with us in the education of their kids.
And so was there, a specific event or a moment where you said to yourself, we really need to kind of get this together? I don't know. Was it like a snow day that went awry or?
Yeah. So I can go into the weeds here on this a little bit. Of course, the best communication and most popularly rated is the snow day announcements for sure. We have those here in Michigan, but we have a number of tools, but there has been some key points along the way. It's like, I can talk about the website. We have had several platforms with that. We want parents to have accessible information so they don't have to make phone calls every time they're wondering about information about something. We want them to have great communication with urgent things. That's where we came across the Bloom's application, be able to send those notices out. But we wanted to make sure staff has the same access to the tools that I have. And they wanted to send pictures, and they wanted to be able to receive responses. So typically with a tool like that, it's just get on your Gmail and send a message, and then you got to create all the groups. Well, now we've got them rostered so that they don't have to do any of that work. They can send an entire roster. We can translate into different languages and things like that. But I got to be honest, these things are just little course corrections along the way. This was not like hey, let's get together and put a communication plan together and do all of these things. Well, now I've got Foxbright, Blooms, websites, social media, YouTube. We recently started TikTok, Facebook. But I will say one moment that I do remember is as we were developing all these tools, I'm like, man, how many people are really reading our newsletter? And I took a risk and I didn't send one of them. And nobody noticed. Yeah. And so I'm not sending the printed mailed newsletter. And it's been, I can't remember how many years it's been since I've sent it. It used to be monthly, then it was quarterly.
Yeah.
And then I didn't send one of the quarterlies and nobody noticed. And it's like, all right, the other tools that we're using are kind of weeding out the tools that aren't being used. And so I saved $20,000 at the time of not having to mail print newsletters and put them into these other tools that are much more accessible for our parents and our staff. So a lot of tools that we're using. So those are just a little bit of the story about the number of things that we're doing in the communication world, and I can go into detail on each one of those in the decision-making process. But we do monitor whether these things are being effective, and we adjust as necessary.
So do you see it as much as that you are innovating, or is it more that you have just are reacting to the changing dynamics? I mean, you mentioned the tools, the YouTubes, the TikToks. So these are the things that students are using them anyway, and to a large
Yep.
effect that the parents are. So is it a matter of responsiveness to change behavior, or are you are you still trying to have to introduce these changes so people understand that they can use and communicate with your district that way?
I'm going to use the word evolve. Everything evolves. There was a time this district didn't have a website. So I'm 17 years a superintendent here at Oakridge, 21 years in the district. And there's a thing, things have changed a little bit in those 17 years. And so we've transferred from one website platform to another because it has different efficiency tools. We've transferred from one communication app to another just because some companies are acquired and some tools and customer support changes, things like that. So I'm going to use evolve, but we're always trying to make sure that the tools we use are easy to use for our staff, accessible for our parents. And if I may, I'll go into detail with our communication platform, which happens to be Bloom's right now. We had tools, but I was the only one able to use them. And so it was rostered. I could connect. I'd send a text, I'd send a voice message, I'd send an email, all in one click of the button. But our staff were using every free tool that they could find on the internet. And being a parent of my own kid, it's like, man, I'm getting hit with all these different platforms for depending on which teacher that they have. That's not a very good experience for a parent. And so we unified around one tool. I told them, I'm not banning Gmail. You can still email back and forth with the parents and what you need to communicate on. But when you need to do mass communication, I want to make sure it's easily and accessible for the teachers so that they can read. If they're a secondary teacher, all 140 students can get a message. Or if they're sending it to one class, they can select just one class. Elementary, all 25 to 30 other kids will get a message. But they can get messages back. So not only are teachers accessible, but I'm accessible too. You do have to put guardrails on that because you want to protect the 40-hour work week and you can't be 24/7. But I'll be honest, that's my job, and I do respond to responses that come through our app. And I know parents appreciate that, but I've been very fortunate that nobody has taken advantage of that. So just got to make sure the guardrails are up. So yes, accessible. Efficient, will hopefully increase trust in our community with our parents, and we're using a tool that's helped us accomplish those goals. So yes, we've evolved in each one of those areas, and there's a little story like that about every tool that we use because we have to train our staff on every one of these things, and it takes time to roll those out. So you got to be selective on how many changes you're going to do at a time.
Sure, because you have I'm assuming, from other conversations I've had, you have 1,800 students, you have a large number of faculty. Maybe not everybody's going to be enthused about a new technology in general, and maybe, oh, this is the way I've always communicated to my students' parents, and I'd like to keep it that way.
Yep.
How do you work that into the professional development?
Yeah, so you're always going to have your go-getters and the ones that are, hey, just let me know, I'll do what I need to do. And there's always going to be somebody that's like, man, that's just not for me. So I've been very fortunate that we've got a lot in those top two categories, and those are the ones that lead the efforts and help kind of try the things out to get all the bugs out before the rest of the staff does. But yeah, just a few weeks ago, I got an email from one of our teachers that, hey, I just let you know, Bloom's is the most amazing app, having access to the parents and sending pictures and updates. And the second is such a great tool. And it goes on about sharing pictures and how accessible they are, things like that. So that's one of my go-getters. And having them be thankful, and those are the ones that are going to be helping others that are not as native to the digital world as others that are going to help the other ones along. But those are also the ones that are helping make the decisions about which tool to use and what's going to be the most useful to a teacher. So getting feedback like that, unsolicited, those are the kind of things that make my day.
Yeah. How about containing your messaging, right, and containing the engagement. But there's so many other platforms out there. I mean, I think for the old people, it's Facebook. For the young people, it's TikTok. And there's like communications happening kind of outside your walled garden of whatever the communication system you're using. Does that become part of your structure as well?
You know, so I'm going to go with the snow day analogy here. So because that's such an important thing, dealing with, we can't have kids out on bus stops when there's no bus coming along. So we communicate in a lot of platforms. I put it on the website. I send an email. I send a text message. I put it on all the TV channels. I put it on social media. Just in case one of those don't work, it's going to get through to the people that are necessary.
Yeah.
But yeah, TikTok, Facebook, YouTube, all of those, there's a purpose for each one of them and the audience that you're sending. It would be wonderful if I only had one tool to communicate to all constituents, to all the channels that they actually watch, and I can just click send. Unfortunately, I haven't found that tool, and so I'm having to use a number of tools and being strategic on how we're communicating and evolving. Let's be honest, TikTok, I didn't start that till about a year ago, and that's up to about 1,000 followers now. So I'm getting a different audience with that. So yes, would love to have that magic platform that does all of those things for me, but I'm having to do each one of them, but each one of them are intentional and purposeful.
Yeah. So yeah, and so you talked about 1,000 followers and earlier about 0 subscribers to this newsletter. Talk about how you measure whether families feel more informed and connected. So you talked about the feedback from the one go-getter faculty member, but how about the wider community? Is there a way that you can show success, measure success?
Yes. While I do have tools to measure how many people are opening the messages, and while I personally do not have a social media account, but I am able to post to our district social media accounts. And I don't sit and dwell on over every single message that pops up there, but you know, and people let me know what are the messages that are landing well, and what are the messages that we may need to do some additional communication to fill in some gaps. So if you don't communicate, the parents are going to fill the gap with rumor and innuendo versus fact. And so anytime I can get ahead of rumors and perceptions, I do that. But I do monitor our social media channels. I see how many messages that we send that are actually opened. That's what I wasn't able to do with our newsletter that I talked about. I had no feedback whether people were reading it. But the best feedback was nobody complained about not getting a printed newsletter. So yeah, I do monitor those things. It's not very scientific other than the tools that are within the platforms. But yes, keeping a pulse on things. Here's another example. This one did come through our Bloom's application, or excuse me, this one was on Facebook. Just a random parent saying, hey, I really like these real-time updates. Maybe other schools should use something similar just in case there's something pertaining to a specific bus or general updates about busing. So they were referring to one of my Bloom's messages that I sent out that they wished that their school district had that. So that was not even from our community, but was on one of our feed. I take it as a compliment that, hey, I wish my school district does what Oakridge does.
Yeah.
So anecdotal feedback is good feedback too.
Absolutely. Yeah. What surprised you most about this process? Is there something that was harder than expected, or something that worked better than you imagined?
Well, we've had our challenges along the way. One example is we were using a specific platform for all our student management system, and they had come out with, or they had acquired another company that was one that we had just purchased, and the customer service dropped, and the technical issues that we were having. And so I ended up abandoning that product, switching to something new. So rolling out something that I didn't go through a vetting process with, I just accepted the product that they had. It was cost effective. It just didn't work very well once it got acquired by that other company. So those little bumps along the way was what I learned from that is you got to go through a process. You got to get feedback. You got to get people understanding what the why is, understanding what we're trying to accomplish here, and does the solution meet that need in the district? And then you'll have the advocates that I've shared with you on how to roll those things out and have it be a much more effective tool.
Yeah, that's good stuff. I kind of to close off, what sort of advice, such as that advice, but other pieces of advice you might be able to give to other districts who, well, there must be some sort of communication taking place, but maybe it's ineffective and it needs to be unified. It might be in a more chaotic thing. What would be the first steps they should do after listening to us?
Yeah. So if this audience is just wondering, I'm 17 years into this, and I just considered this my everyday practices here. And so, but I've listened to others, and I've found out these tools that are out there. There's many tools. I'm sure some think one tool is better than another, but it's the strategy, it's the message, it's the frequency, it's the listening. Those are more important, in my opinion, than the actual tool you select. It's how you go about the process to select the tool, matching solution with an actual problem that you're trying to solve, not problem looking for a solution, or solution looking for a problem, I should say. So that would be my advice: is be strategic, thoughtful, and involving enough people to make an informed decision so that the rollout is that much more effective in solving the actual problem that you're trying to accomplish.
Well, Tom, congratulations on your successes with these strategies. I appreciate you taking the time to speak with us and sharing those insights for our listeners and our readership. So thanks very much.
Well, I hope it's helpful to your listeners, and I'm really glad to be a part of this. Thanks.
So big thanks to Tom, and thanks to you for listening to this episode of Tech and Learning Conversations. If you're a district leader wondering whether your printed newsletter is actually being read, maybe Tom's story will inspire you to test out that hypothesis. And if you're looking at unifying communication strategies, remember Tom's key piece of advice. It's not about the tool you select, it's about the overall strategy, the message, the frequency, and most importantly, listening to feedback. If this episode was helpful, please subscribe, leave a review, and share it with other education leaders that are navigating the ever-evolving world of school communication and technology. Until next time, keep the channels open and the messages clear.